this might have been the most exciting first week of a World Cup in my life. We had golazos, we had goal line clearances, and we had hot starts from 2 of the 3 hosts. But most importantly for the Tartan Army, Scotland leads Group C after 1 game played for all countries. Guys, it is the end of week 1 of the World Cup, and we are back with the Summer of Soccer 2026 episode 2. We've had half of the groups play. We will discuss the second half of the groups yet to kick off their tournament, as well as start the second game for every group. So there are still a couple still yet to play. France hasn't kicked off yet. Norway hasn't kicked off yet. But this is the Belly Up Sports Summer of Soccer 2026, and this is episode 2 for all of our coverage on the World Cup here at Belly Up Sports. Joining me as always is Nik Gable, a Belly Up Sports contributor, and Hector Flores, host of the Insert Name FC podcast. You guys, and Hector, by the way, I got to shout you out. We had a lot of heated debate over the weekend. You are my chosen debate partner for these conversations because honestly, we can have the debate, we can have the conversation, we have 2 perspectives, and it's fantastic, and we leave happy, and we still make a show together.
You are my Stephen A to my Skip Bayless.
There you go. Hey, we love it. Nik also is joining us. He is our calmer partner for this trio. So believe that or not, I'm sure at a game though, Nik, you're probably the most wild of all of us, if I had to guess.
Yes, I'm a big shouter during moments of soccer games because nothing will happen, and then there'll be a cross into the box, a header, and I'll go wide, and I'll just shout really loud, random words.
Yeah, I'm not doing all that. That's too much for me. But guys, what are your first thoughts after this first week of games? I mean, it's a truncated week, so it's a much smaller version as what we'll have in episode 3 because we will have a full week. But in week 1, I mean, there were a lot of great games to start out. So, Nik, what were your first thoughts of this week of games?
Probably just the uniqueness of the styles being played from teams that I don't really see that much of, like South Korea, Australia, teams like that. And it was cool to just see it all, kind of just the newness of it all. Week 1 is just so new to everyone. You don't know really how every team's going to line up. And it's fun to just kind of see all of it.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Hector, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Honestly, man, I think with all the talks and the discussions about USA hosting this World Cup and all the negative notions of the US hosting and how the US is such an unserious country for football and this, that, and the third, the best part of it all is now seeing the people that are coming into this country and embracing the culture that is US. And shout out to Freddy7, I think that's his Twitter handle. I love that he's been traveling amongst the South, which I mean, I'm a little bit biased just because even though there's some debates whether Texas is considered the South or not, but I mean, also Texas is his own ideology, so I get that too.
Texas is Texas. I feel like Texas falls in the category of Texas.
But I'm loving the clips. I love of all the people that are coming from Europe all across the world to come, and they're trying Buc-ee's. They're eating Chick-fil-A. A woman fell in love with Taco Bell. Like it's weird that that's our identity right now, but it's awesome. And seeing, shout out to Freddy7. He got a hookup from JJ Watt, just because of how viral he's been. And yeah, I love the embracing of the uniqueness. Everybody that's coming to Houston to buy cowboy hats. Like I truly love it. I love the people that are, look, put the politics aside. I understand this country's not perfect, but the US has such a unique experience because like each state has its own identity. And for people that are coming in to embrace this country, whether or not it's perfect or not, but not only that, Canada and Mexico as well, man. These are unique cultures, everything is just amazing about these cultures. And I love the people that are really embracing, North America for what it is.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because Freddie has by far been the most popular, but he's not the only one that's been posting constantly about this. There are a lot of French players that are talking about what they're going through. I think one of the French players even got approached by a senator from Texas about some of his stuff. So they were working on a deal there. The Korean fans out of Mexico and what the embracement has been for them. I mean, it's been outstanding to watch. Nobunaga is one of the Japanese ones I've watched nonstop. Absolutely hilarious content. His take on Texas Roadhouse might be one of the best, where it's talking about the most bargain brand, efficient, cost efficient vet version of steak. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, but it sounds like you love it. So we're here for it. I don't know what else.
The Scottish dude too. The Scottish dude is
the Scots up in Boston. By the way, pairing Scottish people with Four Loko, even though it's a new formula, is probably one of the most diabolical things the American marketing world has.
That's America.
But like the Scots have found Four Loko, so we're in trouble, world. And by the way, they do have Four Loko in Scotland, and before I get it wrong, they have it at, I think it's 8%, which is like a slightly stronger beer. Our American version is 12 to 14%, depending on it. And they're a lot more.
And that's with the changes, right? That's like
that's not the 25 and caffeinated version that it once was. So this is the tame version.
Nick, you're lucky you didn't experience what a true Four Loko was.
Yeah,
you also didn't.
So I'm not sure about those.
You didn't get Sparks.
Caffeinated sounds insane.
Yeah, you didn't get Sparks either. Sparks were one of the worst ones out there as well. So we avoided that. We waited the World Cup until after those went to expiry. So now they just get the tamed down version, but still deadly nonetheless. But yeah, it's been an absolutely fantastic week. So we've talked about kind of our fan favorite things, but let's really talk about the moments so far of the week, because there's going to be a mix here, right? There's going to be some game stuff. There's going to be some fan favorite stuff. So what is your favorite moment? Because honestly, you look at this, and up until we release the show, so we will have everything from the Thursday kickoff until just before the Iran and New Zealand game. So apologies to them. We didn't get them before the Tuesday games start. We did have to record this a little early because we all have to get up in the morning. But with that in mind, and it can encompass all of it, even the pre-World Cup conversations, what are your guys' favorite moments so far? Nick, I'm going to let you start with this one.
I wrote down the growing and emerging relationship between the city of Lawrence, Kansas, and the team and country of Algeria. The words rock chalk Algeria were not thought to be spoken ever, and weren't honestly predicted to be spoken. But Algeria is where Lawrence, Kansas is where Team Algeria is based. And there is many videos. You can look them up on the internet, on YouTube, on Twitter, Instagram, of all these people from Kansas just accepting and loving and getting gear for Algeria, because they're just kind of walking around Lawrence, Kansas. And it's probably a culture shock to a lot of the Algerians to see a place like Lawrence, Kansas. And it's really cool because a lot of the kind of discussion pre-World Cup was off the field was pretty negative. And this is one of those like bright moments we can point to. And we will be able to point to years removed from this World Cup of, oh, look what happened to this kind of small middle America town, and this soccer country, or this country came in with their soccer team and they were just accepted right away. And it's really cool to see. And their first game against Argentina is in Kansas City. So it will be interesting to see if the love and the kind of acceptance of the Algerian team gives them a boost. So we'll see. That's definitely been my moment of the week, seeing how cool and wholesome that interaction was.
Yeah, that was college towns, kind of the unsung part of Americana, if you will, in a lot of ways. You mentioned Freddie going through the South. That's why I want to start with this one, because I know this is one of those like connectors. Like, you talk about not just the fans just experiencing it, but also hometown American fans embracing the countries coming to America and experiencing it. We talk about Japan and Nashville, right? That's one of the big ones that have come out in this. That started at a bar in Tokyo 5 years ago or 3 years ago or something. And now they chose Nashville, which was not a FIFA-approved city for a home base, and they chose that. So I love the Lawrence, Kansas. Hector, what is your first moment of the week so far?
I was going to talk about Australia beating Turkey, but I think something even incredible happened actually on the day of us recording this, and that is Capo Verde, man. What a showing. It was a 0-0 draw with heavy favorite Spain. And I think, people are going to make excuses, right? Everybody has excuses, FC, when it comes down to this. Yeah. But at the end of the day, strong showing from Capo Verde. They had a strong defensive performance. Shout out to the goalkeeper playing in, I believe, the second division in Portugal, 40 years old, and having his World Cup moment, right? Having a big positive result for Capo Verde. And for Spain, I mean, questions, right? Questions going into that second match. But it's also in Spain's DNA to start slow also in these competitions. So it's kind of on point for them as well. Also, just to point it out, this isn't excuses FC for Spain. Obviously, I don't really care what happens to Spain, even though they are my heavy favorite. They were without Lamine Yamal. Lamine Yamal wasn't the starter. He came in the 70th minute, but what can you do at that point in the match?
And Nico, by the way.
And Nico as well at that valid point. So I think all in all, what a great moment for Capo Verde. And honestly, just what a moment for all these smaller nations. I know right now that the media is pushing this ridiculous, dumb narrative of the problem with this Hispanic World Cup is now you're going to have countries that normally have no business to be here. When you see results like what happened with Curaçao losing 7-1, but what we're forgetting is that moment when Curaçao scored their first goal in the World Cup and how elated the Curaçao people were louder than anybody in that stadium. And probably the Germans were also happy for them as well. That was an awesome, good feel moment. So I don't want anything taken away from that. This is the point of the World Cup. And by the way, if we're talking about big leads, let's not talk about, let's actually bring up what happened in Brazil for Brazil. Speaking of German blowouts. So that's just my take on that one. No, I think the expanded World Cup is great. It gives countries opportunities that they never thought they would be able to. Like I said, man, as a matter of fact, as I'm wearing this shirt, the day is going to come, I hope, that El Salvador returns to the World Cup, and hopefully it's not a 10-1 loss to Hungary.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought Curaçao up too as well, because smallest country to ever compete in the World Cup. That should always be shouted out every single time. And they scored a goal against Germany, which is not, it wasn't like they scored a goal when it was 6-0. They did score a goal when it was still relative. Strong emphasis on relative, because it was very loosely relative, but it was still competitive, technically speaking. But yeah, it was an incredible thing to see small nations like that, and really any one of these. And by the way, I need somebody to give me a correct pronunciation on Cape Verde, because I know the Portuguese pronunciation is Cape Verde. The English version, the American English version, is Cape Verde. But every time I hear it on broadcast, it's Cape Verde, which is like nobody pronounces it that way in the English language from everything I can find. So please, somebody
That's
help
why
me
I said
with
it
this.
in Spanish.
The Portuguese version is absolutely it's Cape Verde. That's absolutely correct. I mean, it's definitely a lot more enunciated than what I'm doing, because I'm definitely butchering it. But American English, which is what I know, is Cape Verde. That is literally how it's pronounced. Don't believe me, Google it. I promise you I'm correct on this one. Fox, get your stuff together. That's my bashing of a news station today. Before I do that, though,
I've also been watching Telemundo broadcast, by the way.
I don't blame you. Honestly, I would have. I probably would. I do it. I do it on
we
some
also
of them.
mention another entertaining thing that's been going on as far as the Fox Sports side of?
Oh yeah. Which one?
The relations of the legends of Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Thierry Henry versus Alexi Lalas.
I thought they were going to get a fight in day one. And Alexi, by the way, also saying one of the more offensive things I've heard anybody say on air, and because he doesn't understand what an effing wanker is. Excuse my French for anybody who's listening, but yeah, he called James Corden an effing wanker on live television, and every person on screen is all British or from Europe, and they all looked at him like, "I'm sorry, you said what, sir?" Like they were ready to fight. So Alexi Lalas standing up for all Americans for the ignorance and annoyance.
I don't know if standing up is the right word, but definitely
dragging us all down
for us.
Yeah, he is definitely dragging us all down.
Yeah,
he's definitely the character of what most people think Americans are.
Yeah, he is absolutely the caricature for sure. But that is not my moment of the week. But I do agree that is one of the more hilarious things to watch along the way. My moment is, however, the Japanese header to tie the game against the Netherlands, because everybody under the sun all would just say that is insanity. You are continuously crossing the ball into the box and expecting a different result, and you are literally a half a foot shorter than everybody on the other side of defending this. Time and time again. But the Japanese, I've learned, have a saying for this. This is an actual Japanese term, but the English translation of it is dripping water breaks down stone. And it was the complete definition of that. And basically what it means is every single small repetitive decision you make has a large impact on the greater good. I couldn't think of a better way to typify that other than that. That was like the most hey, there's a proverb. hey, you followed through and it happened. Here we are. This is my moment. It couldn't be more fitting. And honestly, we're all kind of secretly rooting for the Japanese. I feel like it's just like maybe in the back of our head, we all kind of want to see that happen. Maybe some countries don't, but for me, I personally do. So yeah, that's my moment of the week. The Japanese tying it up, and it wasn't like it was for a win, but honestly, the way they celebrated that, I think it was kind of a win.
Great match as well.
Yeah, one of the better ones. But that is our moments of the week. Before we get too far into our recaps or previews into everything, we did take a poll for every game we pick. So just so everybody's aware, listening, watching, we do pick every game. We may not talk about every game on the show, but we do pick them. Why do we pick them? Well, bragging rights, of course. Why else would we do that? So in our first week of results, there were 15 total games possible. If we did get a draw game, the game did come to a draw and nobody picked it because it is an option to pick draws in our pick'ems, it counts as a loss for that person. So it means we all got shot in the foot for this one. So after our first week of games, our pick results are in. I'm tied with Nick, 6-9 apiece, and Hector, you're sitting at 5-10. Now, I will say there's one game left to play today that would make 16, and Hector might be right on even footing with all of us after this game. But everything can change with a single day's games. We're all within enough points of each other. So, what are your thoughts when you look at that record and you're like, I feel like I picked a lot better than this? What are your thoughts on that, Hector?
No, it sounds about right. It sounds about right. I will tell you, man, this World Cup, even when, on Insert Name FC, when I did my little impromptu World Cup preview before we went into the break, even I was not 100% confident in the teams I picked. I'm confident in the top 5 I have of the teams that might win the World Cup, but I got to the point where my final, at least the way it was going with my final, it has Spain and Portugal in the final, and I highly doubt that's happening. So, this is an interesting World Cup. The way it's gonna finish, I think once again we probably should always consider that the expanded World Cup can be a difference maker, and I think we have some amazing. I mean, Uruguay. I don't know what happened against Saudi Arabia, but props to Saudi Arabia for really giving it to them over to Uruguay. I mean, a lot of these teams going up against these giants, some of them are getting good results, some of them are not. But I mean, that's what this game's all about, man. And I'm all for it. I'm all for the chaos of this expanded World Cup, because that's exactly what this expanded World Cup is going to be, and that is pure chaos. So there is no real way to tell who's going to win, and I can't wait for more of it.
Yeah. And by the way, one of the things of chaos, I want to shout out Nick here, because he was actually tied with you until one game today with the Belgium and Egypt game. And I need to say this because you said this during the preview, and it's a clip. It's on social media now. You said that this game is a weird game for big teams in the first game in the World Cup. You sometimes struggle to get your full footing. We watched Belgium go 80 plus minutes, 70 plus minutes without scoring, without really being competitive against Egypt. And Nick, you had this thought going into it that you think it would be a draw. You were exactly right. You're the only one of us that picked a draw correctly, by the way, in this first week. Maybe it's because Hector and I are just like, no, it's win or go home. Like maybe that's the thinking we have, but
that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, I'm the same way. But Nick, when you look at that and you saw the game being played, is this what you thought would happen in that Belgium and Egypt game?
Yeah, first games, as I said in the last show, first game ones are weird. Match day ones are weird. It's never like a straightforward thing, especially with a team like Belgium, who is has their kind of silver hair generation, I'll call them, not their golden generation, because they're past their prime. And it's definitely, if you look at Belgium's squad, it's definitely a kind of clash of, do we play the young guys or do we play the guys who have played in, I don't know, probably at least 15 plus World Cup games in their career? And it'll take them a game or two to figure that out. And with Egypt, it's their first World Cup in a while, and I think those teams that are playing in their first World Cup for a while are running off adrenaline and emotion for the first probably 45 minutes, or first quarter, as many people are calling the hydration breaks now. They're splitting the game up into 4 quarters, which benefits the American mindset to keep it simple and 4 quarters like most of our sports.
Yeah, I didn't know we'd start watching all of a sudden basketball after the NBA finals. But yeah, so what are your guys' thoughts on when it comes to the quarters so far, if you will? Hector, I know we've talked about this before, and we kind of hate or at least I hated the idea. I don't like quarters. I don't like what I'm watching, period, when I have to take a break and then watch commercials for 3 minutes. But Hector, what are your thoughts?
I don't really view it as a quarter thing. I know it's the hydration break, and I mean, this isn't new. The hydration break, at least, it's kind of been. I probably would say around Qatar. Qatar is when they started introducing the hydration break, just because of the concerns of the heat. Yeah. That was in Qatar, and I mean, MLS kind of started implementing the hydration breaks just because, once again, especially in a league that plays during the summer, and the summer, we keep talking about the weather in the U.S. and especially in the South. It's not easy to deal with, especially most of these stadiums being outdoor stadiums in MLS. So the hydration breaks have been implemented, and obviously it's funny because you have like a hydration break at SoFi Stadium. It's indoors. There's a lot of these stadiums are indoors, and they're having these hydration breaks. Even in Mexico and in Canada, of course, they're also doing it as well. I think and this is they extended the time, by the way. I believe it was only supposed to be like a minute or so break. Now they pushed it to 3 minutes, I believe now. Yep. And I think it's more for a cheeky reason, and it's kind of how you guys are talking about it as quarters, because what happens during quarter breaks? Coaches are doing what? Analyzing, figuring out what can be adjusted for the next game. And I mean, this is adding for all these managers. This is a chance for them to bring out the tactics board, give them, hey, this is my first initial thoughts of this, how the team is playing against them right now, if we do these adjustments. So what turned into just, hey, drink some water, we know you're sweating like crazy, get your electrolytes in and all that stuff, turned into, wait a minute, I can do some changes right now as far as how we're playing tactically. So and the only reason why I know that is just because obviously my time at the MLS Academy systems, and any chance they get to get any sort of advantage against the opponent, they will take it. And so this hydration break, while you guys are watching ridiculous amounts of ads, unless you're watching in Spanish
or German, by the way.
Or German. Luckily, I'm watching the Spanish broadcast, so I can't. I didn't understand the complaints. You would see the managers taking full advantage of this 3-minute break that they're getting. So while people are complaining about the advertising at this point, some of these managers really love this 3-minute hydration break because they get to give their players a little bit of tips going into the rest of the half.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'll say from my experience, like from my personal opinion on the matter, as a fan, hate it. But I'm also a fan of soccer first, and I just happen to be American. So it's like, it's not because I'm American that I'm like, oh no, I don't want quarters. I don't want stoppages in my games. I hate sitting there because I've sat in a stadium and sat there and waited for these ads to play. And that's been the big complaint, is the in-stadium situation is that they still have to wait for the guy with the headset on to give the approval to restart. And then it has to go to the ref, and then the ref has to start, which is like a big frustration if you've ever watched football in stadiums, especially American football in stadiums, because you got the guy with the big red glove on or big red hat on. Yeah, you got to wait on them too. But I will say, from a manager's perspective, tactically speaking, for the games, this might be the most manager-centric World Cup we've ever seen, because it does matter now. And you see that a lot. Like Belgium makes a move with Lukaku coming in just before the hydration break. They score the goal, then they go into the hydration break, and then they're able to sustain for the rest of the game. Like, that's how that works. But Spain, on the other hand, went through the hydration break before deciding to make the change to Yamal and Nico, and they struggle. So it is very much, it kind of tells you how good a manager is about in-game changes or tactically analyzing in-game situations. And that is a very intriguing standpoint to take on it. And there's goods and bads, I think, for sure. And that does take me to one other thing, and this is probably the bad of the week, if you will. Guys, let's talk about Turkey. And specifically, the conversation pregame and postgame from the Turkish captain, calling out Australia, which let's be fair. As if you're just standing here looking at the teams and saying, all right, who's the better tactical team? Who's the most sound technically speaking? Everybody would probably assume it would be Turkey, just historically. Australia, though, proved them wrong. Wins 2-0. Turkey left withering away. After the game, their captain says they were still dominating. They still dominated Australia except for scoring goals. Can you legitimately argue that you dominated a game when you lost 2-0? I think that's the part that I think I need to like emphasize. They lost 2-0. Can you say that is something that you dominated? Hector, I want to start with you on this.
I mean, you know, as someone that is a Madridista and has had to watch Barcelona have possession majority of the game only for them to lose because Real Madrid gets a little cheeky little counterattack. I mean, look, results are results at the end of the day, and you know, you played your game. Australia had their strategy and they implemented it, and it worked out beautifully for them because it got them a 2-0 victory. And the problem with Turkey was the fact that while they did have the possessions, they had the opportunities. Nothing came of it. No result came of it. They never capitalized on their opportunities. As a matter of fact, I'm sure some of their shots are catching up to Gabby's goal penalty kick from the Champions League final. So I mean, like that, at the end of the day, like, you know, sometimes you just gotta take it to the chin. Maybe Turkey obviously kind of came in with expectations of being the heavy favorites of their group, and even though they went through the whole second qualifier process to get here, but obviously they looked at they were going to be in a favorable group against the likes of Australia and Paraguay and obviously the United States. But I think they're learning now that with teams that are going to be more defensive minded, which Australia is, and I mean, you got to learn a player that I highlighted in our little previews. They used them and he used them perfectly, because they got exploited in their possessions. They were coming up a little too high. Australia found their little poke and then got the goal. So I mean, you can say you're playing beautiful football, you can say you're doing the things right and all that, but at the end of the day, did you get the win? Did you get the 3 points? No. So I don't know if you can say you're the better team on the pitch if you didn't get the win.
Yeah, I agree with you. You got to get a W by your name to be able to claim anything. I think at this point, the beautification of the game doesn't matter. It's, do you get the dub or do you lose? Like, that's all that matters in the tournament now. Nik, what are your thoughts on this situation?
You know, it's kind of the classic, you know, one team dominates possession, but the other team counters them and scores once or twice. And in this case, Australia scored twice. I think it's probably really frustrating for the Turkish players to go out there, feel like they dominated the game and come away losing, and especially their captain. I will say that it does show a bit of confidence to me in Turkey that they're like, well, we dominated the game. Obviously, maybe it's a little deranged confidence, but it seems like the Turkish team is confident about their approach and winning games, and they just need maybe a slight little tweak here and there. But yeah, this is classic. This happens a lot in soccer, where, you know, one team is just kind of, you know, even just like 70 to 80% of possessions of the possession, and the other team just counters. I think clearly, and we'll talk about this in the USA game, Turkey's kind of lack of athleticism maybe in the midfield cost them, and that would probably be where I would point, like, hey, if you dominated the game in terms of possession and shots, but maybe you didn't dominate the game in terms of like raw physical ability.
Oh, that's fair. That's a fair assumption. And I guess I kind of got to give a little credit here, because to be confident enough to say that to the international media, not just national, because it's not like you're just talking to Turkey's media outlets. We're talking internationally to just say, no, we're better than you, period, point blank, end of conversation, whether we win or lose. Like, I do think that rash confidence should be like a little bit like, I believe in you, but I also think there has to be a little humbleness to this one, that you're like, no, we messed up, because there was no ownership that, yeah, we bundled it at the end of the day because we gave up 2 counterattack goals. Like, there was no, Italy made a living off of counterattacking and winning games 1-0 and 2-1. It's a legitimate strategy that has won World Cups. That's the result. and you lost to it. So that's the conversation I have for it. But we'll get rid of that. That was actually my first topic, because we're going into a new subject for this one. We're going into the surprise of the week, and this was actually my choice. But I said forget it. We're going to talk about it there, because why not? We'll have that conversation. So my surprise of the week was obviously the Turkey situation, but there were more this week. Some of them being the fact that there was a Canada-Bosnia game that ended 1-1 without Alphonso Davies or Eden Dzeko stepping on the field, which, how do you do that? I don't know. That wasn't on my bingo card. But there's also so many more to choose from. So, guys, let's start with your choices for surprise of the week. Mine's out of the way. It's Turkey. That's my surprise. Hector, what do we go to you?
My biggest surprise, I just did not expect the U.S. to be as dominant as they were against Paraguay. I anticipated Paraguay to play defensively, and that's exactly what they did. I thought it was interesting that they brought in, they let Encino start. I thought that was kind of interesting, especially with the fact of his injury that was pretty recent, to put him out there. But he is one of their better players, and if he was given the green light to go, he was going to want to play in that World Cup. But I just did not anticipate the U.S. to be as fluid as they played. This is bringing me back to when B.J. Callahan was running this team, the way they were playing, and I feel like they got the best out of it. This is the best I've seen Balogun play for the U.S. men's national team as well. I'm still a Pepe guy, but Balogun. There's a reason why Greg Berhalter. The one thing I will say that he was really good at was being able to recruit these dual national players, and Balogun was definitely quite the steal for the 9th spot. And he played great. He was pressing better than I thought he would ever press. That was one of the reasons why I kind of preferred Pepe over him. I thought Pepe's pressing was a little bit better, but still, Balogun was an issue throughout the game. Weston McKennie could have got a goal if it wasn't for an own goal. And Pulisic, he doesn't look like he plays for AC Milan right now, who just hired Ruben Amorim, so that's going to be interesting to follow in the next coming days. But, everything about this team is fluid. I think Tim Ream, a lot of people are going to be critical of him, but I think when you have guys like Chris Richards and Alex Freeman being the guy at the center back spot, which I'm more than happy to have there, it works to have Tim Ream there. And I think, once again, he's your leader. Matt Freese looked pretty good. When you have the back line that you have, it's really easy to do so. Jedi and Sergino Dest were able to do what they want to do because of that back line. Tyler Adams, everything about this team, this was almost perfect performance for the U.S. men's national team. I'm not going to say perfect because, this isn't me taking anything away from Paraguay, but you would like to see them do this against tougher competition. No offense to Paraguay once again, but because people aren't going to accept the U.S. yet unless they do it against a quote-unquote top-tier team, even though Paraguay did have good results in their qualifiers, beating Argentina and Brazil, just to name a few nations that they were able to overcome, even though they were one of the stronger defensive teams. But, the way they played, it was great. Even Gio Reyna, which is, I guess this is just his thing, man. It doesn't matter how he's playing or how little minutes he gets. He's going to ball out for the U.S. men's national team. So, all in all, man, really good start for the U.S. men's national team. They did take the foot off a little bit off the pedal, and I didn't like that too much. But, either way, they're going into that a really important game against Australia, because if they get that result, they can rest on that third match.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this a little bit when we get into the Australia game, but it's worth noting Paraguay, best defensive record of any qualifying team coming into this World Cup as far as their qualification process went. So they gave up the least amount of goals in that time span. And that does, like you said, Hector, Argentina and Brazil are included in that list, as well as all the attacking nations in CONMEBOL. So there's tons to choose from there that can score at will. And Paraguay had the best defensive record out of any team that qualified for this World Cup. So very impressive start, absolutely. But we'll talk more about the USA a little bit later on and talk about maybe some of our takes from that game as well. Nick, what was your first surprise so far of the tournament this last week?
Just the beautiful soccer South Korea played. It was I think the game was like a 6 p.m. Pacific time game. It was in Guadalajara. It was South Korea, Czechia, or Czech Republic. I don't know why they're trying to change the way I say their country's name, but I'm just going to call them Czech Republic, because I had a friend from the Czech Republic, and I never said once he's from Czechia. So I'm going to call him the Czech Republic. But they played beautiful soccer. It was amazing, like one-touch football. And there was a kind of a star emerged. His name is Lee Kang-in. He plays for PSG. And he's kind of like the forgotten attacker at PSG. And he's like probably 5th in the pecking order for wingers. He can play everywhere. In this game, he played in the midfield. But it was really cool to see South Korea's flair, the way they were passing it around, their kind of emotion when they scored was awesome. And, I think it's the surprise for me because I just do not watch South Korea play unless it is in a World Cup, because there's the Euros that are on Fox, and then there's Copa America that's on Fox, but there's not a lot of ways to view the Asian Cup or whatever it's called. I think it's called the Asian Cup, but there's no real way to view those, and so you don't really see a lot of South Korea. So I was pleasantly surprised by them.
Yeah, that's a really good one as well. South Korea obviously pulling off an incredible draw down there, and it was unexpected for a lot of reasons. I mean, it was everything seemed to be going against it. We all knew Sonny. That like everybody knows who Sonny is, and it's just one of those guys that you're like, oh yeah, the smile that lights up 1,000 houses. Like that's who he is. But the surrounding piece about him, Inbom, like go around the list for South Korea. There are a lot of really high quality players, and this kind of typifies South Korea as a whole when it comes to a footballing nation. You always have that one star, Park Ji-sung being one of them as well. In the past, and that's who kind of Sonny emulates in a lot of ways, and is the way he's seen by the world. But beyond that, there's always just a lot of really effective, really good players, and you mentioned Lee Kang-in, who is at PSG, who is fantastic there. But they also put a lot of players in the Bundesliga that gets overlooked. They're kind of like Japan in a lot of ways, where they put players into the 3rd, 4th, 5th best leagues in the world, and they do great on winning teams that don't get relegated, and they continue to build off of that, and they build pathways that way, and they've slowly built themselves into a powerhouse, which is kind of why I picked them to do what I did. But yeah, absolutely fantastic showing in Czechia against Czechia. Hector, what are your thoughts on South Korea's beautiful soccer?
Yeah, I mean, they played with, I think, also a lot of grit, man. They were very determined throughout the game. And once they came in, once they started scoring, it just came in bunches, man. It was a solid team performance. I mean, props to Czechia also for at least making it good in the first half. And I think it just, it's clearly 2 different levels of teams. One is always in the conversation when it comes to Asian football success, and the other one is, had to go through another qualifier to get to this World Cup. So there's levels to it. I don't think Czechia is necessarily out of it. I think there's still going to be a tough fight against them. But yeah, I think positive result for South Korea, and kind of similar to every team that got a win in these first matches, is they can go into that second one, just get a result, and knowing that third match is one that maybe they can at least ease up a little bit going into the knockout rounds.
Yeah. And by the way, a little lore on South Korea. You mentioned Lee Kang-in. He was actually the number 2 for South Korea under Jurgen Klinsmann until 2024. And I find this amazingly crazy to think about how impactful the sport can be on the world. Everybody remembers the Jurgen Klinsmann, obviously coached the U.S. He was coaching South Korea at the time in the Asian Cup, going into the semifinals. The night before the game, players go to play ping pong. Sonny goes and confronts them about that because they wanted to bond. He wanted them to bond instead. One of the players is Lee Kang-in, dislocates Sonny's finger in a altercation. He plays the next day. Both play the next day. They lose. What results is a lot of fallout and problematic situations that leads to Lee Kang-in flying to Tottenham to apologize to Sonny. He's actually, by the way, Lee Kang-in gets kicked off the team, gets brought back in after Sonny begs the South Korean media to be understanding and forgive him. So whole situation, he did apologize, formal apologies, bowing and everything. Now he's back with the team, but you mentioned he's like kind of the 4th and 5th option in a lot of places, and was the number 2 guy. He was he's still probably the second best player on that team, and just gets overlooked a lot of times. So Very interesting lore about how the impact of soccer plays on the world. But speaking of impact, let's talk game previews because we've talked about the past. Let's talk about a little bit of the future here, guys. We do have a week's worth of game to come up. And like I said, I apologize to the Iran New Zealand fans. We're not going to talk about you guys in this one, but maybe we talk about you in the future in this next week group games. But we're going to start out with the France-Senegal matchup. Group I will finally be kicking off. And I don't think there's any better way to start this than Kylian Mbappe kicking off France's World Cup. Now, will they win versus Senegal? I'll let you guys decide. Hector, give us a breakdown on this one.
No, yeah, man. Obviously, you have undeniably probably the most complete team, even in their third group in France. Obviously, this is the embodiment of just having an impeccable system and an impeccable pool of talent for your country. And then you have Senegal, who one of the better teams in Africa, are rightfully so the champions of AFCON, and I obviously have something to prove here. They have a lot to prove here because they want to show for a fact that AFCON was they were done wrong and that they were in fact the champions of AFCON. And I'll say it with my chest as well, man. Like they want it. If Morocco wanted to be the winners, they could have just said, hey, they technically forfeited, so we're taking the cup. But they didn't want to do it that way. They wanted to win it outright, and guess what? They didn't. So, moral of the story is, if you want the cup and a team walks out of the pitch, you better claim that victory as soon as possible. But yeah, I think Senegal has a lot to prove. Obviously, a lot of talented players on that team, a little bit older, but still a very talented team nonetheless. France, talent on talent on talent, and the worst part is that they are still very young, ton of experience and a lot of youth, and that experience is actually coming from the youth. So a lot to talk about with France. Obviously, high expectations of making their third straight World Cup final appearance and potentially getting another one. So I mean, if France does it, I think this is going to go down as one of the most dominant eras in World Cup history. You probably even think of the likes of Brazil, but it's in that conversation. Not yet, of course, but it's definitely in that conversation.
Yeah, we could have a conversation about Mbappe getting another trophy added to his case, individual trophy to go with the World Cup conversation, the World Cup finals. But we'll save that for the possibility in the knockout round. But yeah, absolutely going to be an interesting game. Who wins, who loses will be very interesting. We're all on the same side though. So after last week, I think we're all like, all right, we're not going to play around with some of these picks. We're going to go winners. So we all pick France, surprising nobody. Is that fair? Probably not. Sorry, Sadio Mane. I do love you, but I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry. I'm not that dumb.
Watch Senegal win.
I just said those words, and all I'm thinking of is, man, this is going to make a great short for when Senegal ends up beating them 2-0. So yeah, there you go. There's our producer in the background gets that short ready for us. But later on today will also be Iraq versus Norway, which is Group I. We all picked Norway. Surprise nobody. Then Argentina, Algeria. Group J will kick off. Nick, you have a draw. Hector and I are both going Argentina. And then the Austria-Jordan game closes out Tuesday night's game. Group J, we all go Austria. So no surprise there. Wednesday, it kicks off with Ghana versus Panama. Now, you guys both went Ghana. I went Panama. We'll leave that for another day. We're kind of just picking and choosing here. That kicks off Group L, followed by the game we're going to talk about here, England versus Croatia. Group L in Dallas. Nick, give us a breakdown on this one because we don't know where we want to go in this.
I want to start this breakdown off with a question. Without looking it up and using your computer, where did Croatia finish in the last World Cup?
Third.
Yes, they did. I was looking into them before the tournament, and in my head, they went out in the quarterfinals. And when I found out they were finished third, they beat Morocco in the third place game, I was astonished. They have mostly the same team back, which is a bunch of older players. However, they do have the same coach who was the coach in 2018 and the coach in 2022 and is now taking charge of his third World Cup. They have a lot of experience. They know how to play together. They have that chemistry. England, a little different. not the same coach they've been going into these tournaments with. Tuchel has been very honest about how he's picked his squad. And like the Belgium-Egypt game, I don't think there's that big of a difference in talent here from Belgium and Egypt, but I do think England will take some time to get kind of comfortable in this tournament. And I think their coach is going to experiment with a lot of different lineups in these first couple games.
I like it. By the way, the only reason I know that is leading into this World Cup, we did our preview series on social media. Croatia, this group was all one of my groups to cover, which means I know exactly where they finished in the 2018, the 2022, and the 2002, I believe. Or no, 1998, which is when they finished third the last time. But 2018, obviously finishing second to France, and then 2022 third. Luka Modric, by the way, still playing, still.
Last tournament, a little bit like Zidane in 2006, Modric is going out with the national team.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy to see. Hector, now I do have to ask you, because you are a Real Madrid fan when it comes to the club, so you have seen a lot of Luka and the Luka Magic, the OG Luka Magic, not to be confused with the basketball Luka Magic. What are your thoughts on Luka and this Croatian team?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, experience is definitely the right word to give it to them, and when you think they're not going to be able to, they do it anyways. I mean, we talk about that 2018 run that they did. I mean, surely, every knockout match they played went to penalties, and you're like, surely they're exhausted. I mean, they had to play the distance every single game. The other team had to win played in regulation time, just as you would expect them to do. And you would think surely they are going to be on fresher legs than Croatia. And we were always wrong every single time until they got to the final. And that's when a very young French team that also, once again, ton of experience, despite the age, was able to beat that Croatian team. And then on top of that, to then go into the World Cup, we talk about France making it back to the final, but for Croatia to also go back to the semifinals, didn't make it to the final, of course, but did make it and beat Morocco, a team that was like the talk of that World Cup because of just being the first African nation to make it as far as they win. This team's older. This team probably, there should be concerns about their age, but clearly Croatia just doesn't care. And that is something that should be important. Their chemistry is going to be very, very good. And they have something to play for. This is Luka Modric's not only last World Cup, but last matches as a professional player. So, you talk about last World Cup and how Argentina was fighting for Messi and making sure Messi solidifies his career. Once again, probably didn't necessarily need the World Cup to solidify it, but it was the last piece of the puzzle to put Messi in the top of that conversation of greatest of all time. So, and I mean, obviously, Portugal is probably another team that's probably going to try to have a similar story. But Croatia, I mean, Luka Modric has had a lot of great stories for Croatia. His story is just overall just great, and they're going to rally around that guy to give him that storybook ending for his career.
Yeah. By the way, they gained independence in 1991. Have been competing in World Cups since 1998. They have not missed they've only missed one World Cup in that time frame. They've competed in 7 of the 8 World Cups. They finished third twice and a runner-up once for Croatia. Hard to beat that resume when England hasn't brought it home since 1950. Will they ever bring it home? We'll never know. But we'll never know. Probably not in our lifetime. With that said, our picks for this one are going to be Nik and Hector picking a draw and me picking Croatia. Is anybody surprised that I picked Croatia given all the plaudits I just gave them? Probably not. But you guys both going with the draw, so we'll see how this one goes. This is going to be a very good one, I will say, in AT&T Stadium. Dallas Stadium for the World Cup on Wednesday. Later on Wednesday, Portugal versus Congo DR. DR Congo versus Americans. Group K kicks off. We all pick Portugal, and then Uzbekistan versus Colombia. Group K. That'll be all of us picking Colombia as well. That takes us into Thursday, Czechia and South Africa. We all pick Czechia in the Group A start for game number 2 for everybody. Then Switzerland versus Bosnia and Herzegovina in Group B. This is going to be in LA. Hector and I both picked Switzerland. Nick, who are you picking in this one?
I think Switzerland. Did I forget to put a pick in the
You
chart?
did.
Yeah.
Apologies. I'll pick Switzerland. I love their experience, even though they got drew with Qatar. I think they're one of more experienced teams, and sometimes those experienced teams take a game or two to get going.
Fair enough. Speaking of Qatar, they take on Canada in the next game on Thursday, and we all pick Canada in that one in BC Place in Vancouver, taking us to the nightcap, the midnight game. I hate these so much. That is going to be midnight Eastern time for anybody who's curious. That's going to be Mexico versus the Korea Republic, South Korea, Group A in Guadalajara Stadium. Hector, where do we need to go on this one?
I mean, to quote the greatest singer from Guadalajara, Vicente Fernandez, Guadalajara, Guadalajara, Guadalajara. That is like an iconic song over there, but an icon in general, Vicente Fernandez. But yeah, I think this is going to be amazing. Mexico, the crowd showed up in that opening match in Azteca, and I'm sure they're going to do it once again in another iconic stadium in Guadalajara, in the home of Chivas de Guadalajara. So I think it's going to be really cool. The big question is going to be for Mexico is obviously Cesar Montes, a very important center back captain for Mexico right now. He's going to be without them because he got a red card in the South African game. And so that's going to be a big loss. There's going to be a lot of conversations. Do you bring in Edson Alvarez to play center back, a guy that normally plays CDM, but Mexico has used him as a center back from time to time, essentially would be the captain of this team for that occasion. And then South Korea, I mean, stayed the course. You know, Mexico, this is going to be a different approach for them. Against South Africa, they had to be the aggressor. They were playing with that high press, just applying more and more pressure to South Africa, and they finally got their openings. Probably many would say that they probably should have got more goals in that game, but they still got the goals they needed to get the win. This might be a little bit different because if they press the way that they're going to press, like they're pressed with South Africa against South Korea, it could come with a price, especially with the way that this attack plays in South Korea. They're gonna have their opportunities. They will exploit it, and it could be a rough outing, especially when you're without your best center back. Well, not your best. I think Johan Vasquez is also another good center back, but it's going to be a lot for this Mexico defense, and how they shape this team is going to be very important on how they take on South Korea. I do think Cesar Montes is a big loss, but I think that this is it's going to be a good match either way. And then obviously the whole Mexican fans having a deep love for South Korea, going all the way back to the I think it was the 2018 World Cup when South Korea eliminated Germany, which helped Mexico move on to the next round. So obviously, while they are friends right now, come kickoff, that's going to be on the wayside for a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, by the way, Guadalajara might be one of the more beautiful stadiums in this tournament. In just my humble league.
There's one more stadium in Mexico that I would contest for that.
Fair. But this is like, just looking at it, it's like probably one of the more beautiful ones to look at. You're just like, wow, that's actually a really cool stadium to look at. We see a bunch of them in America, so I'm kind of numb to the American stadiums looking like that. But yeah, in this one, Nick, do you have anything to add to anything Hector said before we go into the picks?
Can I reveal my pick?
Sure.
I said it was a draw, and one of the reasons I think it is because I think the gap between the Czech Republic and Mexico is a lot smaller than the gap between South Africa and Korea. And I think Mexico is going to have a tricky time adjusting to that step up in competition. So I think Korea will get an early goal, and then I think Mexico will kind of get into the game a little more and maybe tie it in the 60th later on in the game, maybe the 60th minute, and it'll end 1-1. I think both teams will have chances to win it, but I think it'll end in a draw.
Fair enough. Hector, I got to ask before we move on to the picks, do you have Quinones getting another goal in this one?
I think he's very important. I think I think the pressing is going to be a big thing for Mexico. I'm gonna be very intrigued what the midfield looks like for Mexico, and just in general, just because of obviously your first formation was a little bit more attack minded. You know, you bring in Brian Gutierrez, by the way, who I think had a really good showing for himself, making his debut for Mexico after making the switch to from the USA. So I think good showing for him, but yeah, Quiones, I think he's just a great asset on your team. Just his pace, his tenacity. He's going to be very important for Mexico. I'm also happy that Raul Jimenez got a goal. I mean, just a great tie into just everything that he's gone through over the years, and to finally be able to contribute for Mexico in the World Cup. It was really great, very sentimental moment. So really awesome for him. But yeah, Quiones is going to be very much the X factor, depending on how they use him, whether they make him as a second striker or put him out on the wings. I think that's going to be important to see how they play Quiones, because he is going to be at least a headache for that South Korean defense.
Yeah, and you mentioned Raul and his situation getting back from injury. Like, everyone forgets that massively scary moment he had when at Arsenal, when he was taken off on a stretcher. Wasn't for sure if he'd ever play again. If anybody wonders why he has that eye patch looking pad above his ear, it's because that's a soft spot left over from the injury. If he gets hit there again, who knows? But it's not good. On top of that, you talk about his father passing away way too recently. And you saw that emotion, kind of the combination of both of those things, plus everything else he's done to get here. It's an impressive thing to watch. We all love that. This is why we love the World Cup. That's why we love soccer. That's why we love sports. We love those moments. But for that specific one, it was probably as heart-wrenching as it gets when you just sit there and watch that. And you see the true emotion happening there. And then you have one of the great ones in Thierry Henry in the booth afterwards, talking about his emotions, seeing that moment. Because if nobody remembers, Thierry was, I believe, an assistant at the time when Raul Jimenez got hurt at Arsenal in that game. So tough situation to see that, it originally happened, but it's great to see that he's back. He's healthy.
And on top of that, I mean, Diogo Jota.
Yeah. So it's a lot, man. But it's one of those things you just love to see a successful outcome from those. And one goal at the World Cup can be considered a success, but a W at the World Cup would be even better. And at least getting out of your group in spot one and maybe scoring 2 goals along the way would be the best. So Mexico is a rival on the pitch, but off the pitch, I love them. So that's where I'll leave that. Our pick for this one, we're all going a draw. None of us can pick. Sounds about like the fans before and after the game. But during the game, we all know where they're going to go. But it's going to be a fun one nonetheless. But that will take us to another host. We're going to move on to the Friday games. And we're going to start with the last game of the day. That's USA versus Australia. Well, surprising nobody, we're going to all go USA. I'm just going to get the picks out of the way so we can talk about this. What did we see from the USA that you are a little bit concerned about coming into this Australia game? Nick, I want to start with you on this.
Concerned? There was a lot of things to be impressed. I think concerned would be just how easy Paraguay scored. It was kind of off of a set piece. It was kind of as they say, it came from nothing. I would also say Tim Ream's pace against some of those faster Australian players will be tricky. But a lot of things impressed me from the U.S. standpoint. It seemed like every player contributed in a massive way. There was a ton of kind of energy in the game from the U.S. side and in the stadium. And for those who don't know, this game's going to be in Seattle, which is probably, in NFL terms, probably like a top 3 or 4 home field advantage. And in MLS terms, I think it's similar. Also, it will be 75 degrees. So pretty easy temperatures to work with for the USA kind of style of play. And also something to keep in mind is that although it seemed there was a couple people on the internet saying that it seemed like the USA players were juiced, taking roids, but it just was a reflection of how much energy they had. And that style is not really sustainable in a tournament. However, this is a unique tournament because of all the teams that last tournament in Qatar, their game 1 and game 2 had a 4-day period of rest. And this tournament, they'll have 7 days of rest.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be really interesting to see kind of that difference in period. But yeah, I'm excited for this one as a USA fan. Obviously, Australia posed some threats, but I would say America has a lot more athleticism on the field than Turkey does to kind of prevent those counters.
I was worried you were going to say Australia, and I was going to be like, sir, did you not see those counterattacks? But I'm glad you said Turkey. That's fair. I think you put the USA on a lot of people's top 10 for most athletic countries to play soccer. That's just kind of our nature. We just love, like we talked about this in the last World Cup, Hector and I did on his show. That's the nature of the USA's team. Like, worst case scenario, we kick the ball upfield and we go chase it. That's kind of how the USA mentality has always been. And it's not successful by any means, but it is a thought. That is for sure. Hector, did you have any concerns that you were worried about going into the Australia games? And if not, what are you excited to see the USA do against Australia?
I just think they need to have that killer instinct throughout the match. I understand that, like, you're up 3-0, you don't really have to do much else after that point. But obviously you gotta stay focused in the game and keep performing. And I think that's kind of what happened with that goal that was given up against Paraguay. I think they just were like, hey, we're up 3-0. We don't need to be as intense now. But I think that, if they can stay active throughout the game. Australia is a team that is going to make you pay if you do have a slip up at any time. I mean, we saw the pace that they played with against Turkey, who clearly is the better team on the field. So, I mean, once again, you can't be resting on your laurels. I think you get the win, man. Get this win so that way going into Turkey, you don't really have to do much. Still perform, but, the pressure is off. You're automatically on to the next round. Many people thought you were going to get grouped. And if you can finish on top of the table, at least come match day 3, I think it's a positive result for the U.S. men's national team. So, I mean, keep the foot on the accelerator, keep applying pressure. And then hopefully for that, because if you guys get the next 3 points, that third match might be able to put some guys out, let some guys rest and get ready for the knockout rounds.
Yeah, and we saw that already in game 1. You saw Christian take the second half off out of precaution, which is a great idea. I mean, take it where you can get it. But the problem was it did drop off in energy. And that can be a lot of things. But I also think the water breaks, you talk about the water hydration breaks. The USA did come out slow for the first 5 minutes after both water breaks. And I get it. You get a tactical advantage. You get a tactical moment. You get to, regroup your tactics, but then you got to approach the game and you got to try to drum that energy back up. It's tough. It's not easy. And you're also trying to implement the tactical changes mentally during that time. So it's not an easy thing to do. And a lot of countries, we're seeing that happen to them right now. Coming out of the water break, it is a little slow, a little bit of a lax mentality, which is, it's not exactly why Paraguay scored. It was very much a moment that was against the flow of the game that Paraguay scores against the USA. But we saw Australia do it twice against a staunch defensive team in Turkey. Turkey is a very good defensive team. The USA does have questions when it comes to the defense, specifically Tim Ream as the outside of that center back. If he has to attack anybody one-on-one, it does concern me. Thank goodness for Alex Freeman that will always be back with him, and Chris Richards, who has the pace, the power to be able to track back after a set piece in the box on the other side and chase down somebody in that situation and bring help with him. So those are all things that I think the U.S. have an advantage of, because they will be able to catch up to the Australian defenders after Aaron Koundé, because Aaron Koundé is going to be out there. He's going to be running away from everybody on any counter situation. So Jedi, Alex, they'll be our guys to hopefully slow that down. But I think beyond that, this USA team, I think, has a lot of positives. The only downside was that momentary lapse, but you just can't have that momentary lapse against a team that's shown they can do it twice in a game. Like, you just can't have any momentary lapses because it won't work out at the end of the day. But there was a lot of great things to talk about. And I do want to bring up one player who I think surprised the USA faithful, because we all knew he was good, but did we know he was this guy? And that's Serginho Dest. I think what we saw from Dest in game 1 was probably the most impressive single technically sound football we've ever seen from an American player. I think just one-on-one, I don't think I've ever seen a one-on-one guy as good in an American jersey in any single game. And I'm just saying, one game, I think that was the best performance. Hector, what are your thoughts?
No, yeah, I think Serginho, obviously coming from the Ajax system, it's definitely showing. This is why when you go after players that are dual citizens. This is one of those perks because sometimes they offer you something that maybe your current talent pool just doesn't have. But yeah, Serginho was solid. I think honestly, the players that you wanted to have performances performed. Balogun performed, against Paraguay. Christian Pulisic, who is going to have all the pressure in the world every single match because he's just going to be the face until someone else steps up and gets more shine than he is. He's going to be the guy. He's this era's Landon Donovan, so he's gonna get the criticisms. He's going to get the praises, whether he deserves it or not. That's just going to be where he's at. Weston McKennie, I think, very strong performances, was always in the conversation, always was effective in my opinion with the ball. And then once again, the back line, with Tim Ream and his things that he's just not capable of at the moment, just because of that age, even though I don't want to take too many jabs at her because I think me and him are almost roughly around the same age as well. So I don't want to take too many jabs at the age part because I believe he's like 35, 34, maybe around there. Maybe a little bit older than me, but still, nonetheless, we're probably both like 90s babies.
He's very close to both of our ages.
So yeah, so I don't want to take too many jabs. So he's making me proud, at least, like, showing these young bloods how it's done. But at the end of the day, I think that's why you get guys like Alex Freeman, and that's why you have definitely a sturdy person like Chris Richards, who is undeniably our best defender. Some people could argue for him as one of our best players on the team. And I think that's like the importance of this system that Pochettino has. And I think the beauty of it all, and I mean, Kelcey, we talked about this plenty of times, is that these guys have to believe in the system and have to believe in what Poch is trying to do. And I think they're all buying in, man. They're doing it. Everyone's pressing. You saw the way they played. Even Christian Pulisic was getting involved with the pressing. And that's important. I think that's all in all, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you do not believe in what your coach is preaching, then there's nothing you can do. So take Real Madrid for an example of that.
Yeah, we'll leave that one for the Brazil commentary when we get there. But yeah, I think it's important you mentioned the belief system into the system, because that's been a big question especially with Pulisic over the years, being able to believe the system's going to work, to track back, to press. He's the superstar, and he's been the superstar for a long time, maybe before he should have been, and maybe longer than he should have been. That doesn't matter now. The fact is, he is the guy for the U.S., for better or worse. And if he is emotionally vested in the situation, it's always better for the USA men's national team. Nick, before we move on to the next games, any last thoughts on this one?
This was a thought I had in the previous USA game against Paraguay. Was Alex Freeman is kind of like what every European club is looking for at their fullback position lately, where it's just this giant, pacey fullback who can get up the field and down the field and is really good defensively. And the one thought I had was just like he's at Villarreal, which is like probably a mid-tier European kind of Europa League team. My guess is in 5 years he's probably at no offense to Villarreal, but a bigger club than that, because he was so impressive, and he's probably, out of all the players on the field, the one I've seen the least of.
Hey, that's fair. Alex Freeman
he's gonna be in the Champions League next season, so I don't know if he's leaving Villarreal just yet.
Yeah, I was saying the Spanish league is one of those leagues, right? Like, give it 2 years, and the team at 12th will be second place in the league or third place in the league randomly. You just never know.
I mean, shoot, Girona's going down. So they're going.
So that'll be it for the USA-Australia game. We all picked a draw. We all picked the USA. We did not pick a draw. We all went with the USA on this one, just to recap that. But that is the last game on Friday. Before that, there will be 3 games leading up to it. Before that, it's a 10 p.m. this time on Friday for the USA, so thankfully it's not midnight. But before that, you have Brazil versus Haiti going back with Group C, and we all picked Brazil in that game. Scotland versus Morocco for the second game for Group C. That is all Morocco. I don't think any of us are surprised by that, even though Scotland is the group leader. Let's just emphasize that 1 second. In a group with Morocco and Brazil, Scotland is the leader in the clubhouse going into the second set of games. So very impressive nonetheless. And then the last the game before the USA's game will be Turkey versus Paraguay. And that one, we are kind of all over the place. Nick and I both went Turkey. Hector, you went with the draw. So we'll see how that goes. Now moving into Saturday, first game of the day. We're going to talk about it right here, right now. Germany versus Ivory Coast. Very impressive situation for Ivory Coast so far in this tournament. We did talk about it in the preview that maybe I was being a little harsh to the Ivory Coast. I'm sorry. But I did like Yan Diomande, and I still like Yan Diomande, and I will stand by that forever. But very, very good game so far. We all know what Germany did to Curaçao. It is what it is. Minnow versus a powerhouse. That's going to happen. So game 2, these two matching off. We're all going Germany, but guys, this one, Nick, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this is a little bit has some similarities of the USA versus Australia game and the Mexico South Korea game, where for the Ivory Coast, the gap between Ecuador and Germany is much smaller than Germany going from Curaçao to Ivory Coast, and it's gonna be way more of a competitive game for Germany. It seems like the Ivory Coast will kind of sit back, hit them on the counter, like Australia did to Turkey, and Germany's going to want to dominate possession. We can throw it aside and say, oh, well, it's Curaçao. So, but winning 7-1 in any World Cup game is impressive. Take today's result with Spain drawing to Cape Verde.
There you go. English is Cape Verde.
Okay. And I think Germany, what stood out for me in their game was just those that front two, or those two kind of attacking midfielders, Wirtz and Musiala, seem to have their spacing down correctly in this game. And I think those two guys are gonna dictate how well and how far they go. And for this game, I think the Ivory Coast, in my opinion, I think their backup goalie, Alban Lafont, is better than their current goalie. And I think they're going to face a lot of shots, a lot more kind of pressure in attack than they did from Ecuador, because Ecuador is more of a defensive team. So yeah, I think Germany is favorites, and rightfully so.
Fair enough. By the way, Yan Diomande, rookie of the year in the German league, going up against the German defense. That's all I'm saying, man. He scored goals against this German defense. You never know. I didn't change my answer because of it, but just saying that for the world, maybe they make a smarter decision than I did. As I said, we're all picking Germany in this one on Saturday. This kicks off our Saturday games. Next up, Ecuador versus Curaçao, Group E. We all went Ecuador. Game after that, Netherlands versus Sweden. Nick, you went with a draw on this one. Hector and I both chose the Netherlands over Sweden, which, by the way, Sweden had a very impressive win so far in their first game. Then followed by Tunisia versus Japan, and finishing off Saturday night, we all went Japan. Obviously, there's a changeover in the coaching staff for Tunisia. We'll talk about that at a later date. Be sure to check out Belly Up social medias for Nick's take on that. Sunday, June 21st. First off will be Uruguay versus the aforementioned Cape Verde. Everybody is picking Uruguay in this one. And then later that day, Belgium versus Iran. We all went Belgium. New Zealand versus Egypt. We all went Egypt. But the second game of the day we didn't cover yet. That is Spain versus Saudi Arabia, Group H. Hector, I'll let you take the honors.
Yeah, I mean, Spain, not the ideal start to their – well, maybe it is the ideal start to them, because, once again, they like to start slow and then, win the whole thing. So maybe this is right in their script. But on the other side, you have Saudi Arabia, who I think – on a positive side of a draw against Uruguay, they'll take points whenever they get a chance. Another starting the tournament off with a good result. Obviously, everyone remembers last World Cup where they beat eventual champions Argentina in the first match, to the point where they were even promised fancy new cars from their government. So, which I don't know if they actually got that, but hopefully they did, because they deserve it. Well, yeah, so this is an opportunity for Spain to get back on track. Lamine Yamal should be healthier. So maybe we'll expect to see Lamine Yamal start. I don't know about Nico Williams, where he's at in health-wise. Hopefully he's available for them as well, at least maybe coming off the bench. But Spain definitely needs to be a lot more clinical. If they have another repeat of what happened with Capo Verde, it's gonna be the heavy favorites are gonna have to hope that they can get that third place spot, or maybe that's the strategy. maybe that's strategy. Get the third place, and maybe feel that they have a better route to the tournament. I highly doubt that's the strategy, but yeah, I think Spain is. This is definitely now must-win territory now. If you're Spain, you cannot have another draw or worse.
Hey, that's fair. By the way, you mentioned the Spain starting slow and coming back and winning it all. 2014, obviously being their champions year. They, sorry, I think that's wrong. 2010, my bad. South Africa lost game one, won it all. Lost game one in 2014 and 2018 as well. They did not win it all. They got group stage in one of those, round of 16 in the other. Did win last year, and then, well, they went to the round of 16. So it's kind of just like, I wish I could say it was a trend for Spain, but we don't know with them. But maybe this is the case. Maybe they do need to lose and then come back and get it all. Nick, what are your thoughts on this game before we move on to the next ones?
I watched a little bit of the end of the Saudi Arabia-Uruguay game. Saudi Arabia looked really, really tired and exhausted from defending that long, and they did not have a shot in the second half. So I would expect Spain to kind of get into their game, play with a little more urgency from the start, maybe than they did against Cape Verde. And I think Spain's going to handle them pretty easily. I think Saudi Arabia is going to be a little more exhausted than they won't be as fresh as Cape Verde was. So yeah.
Okay, fair enough. This game will be taking place in Atlanta, so it will be potentially a closed stadium if they don't open up the center of it. Even then, it's still like 95% of the way closed, so it's a dome, pretty well temperature controlled. Shouldn't be as bad as some of the other places that will have to play this tournament if they make it that far. But we all pick Spain nonetheless in this one, so conditions be darned. We're going to go with Spain anyways. Next up, we'll have Monday, June 22nd. Kicking off the day will be Norway versus Senegal. In that one, I have Norway. Hector has a draw. Nick, what are you picking in this one?
I'm going to pick a draw. I think Norway's going to win their first game. I think Senegal is going to lose. And I think this game is going to be a draw. Wait, did I say Senegal?
You said draw.
Okay. Yes, draw. It will be a draw.
Okay. All right. Just making sure. Next up, France, Iraq. That'll kick off Monday. We all picked France. And then the last game of the day would be Jordan versus Algeria. We all picked Algeria. But we're going to backtrack for just 1 second. And we're going to go to the Argentina versus Austria game at the 8 o'clock mark. That is Group J back in AT&T Stadium. And guys, this one, we got Messi. We have David Alaba on the other side for Austria. This will be their game 2, by the way. They have yet to kick off their first one. But by the time this gets around for our episode 3, this will be game 2 for their World Cup. Where do you guys have this one going? Nick, I'll let you go ahead and start this one.
Yeah, so Austria opens up against Jordan and Argentina will open up against Algeria. I think that just because of kind of that gap between, as I mentioned before, I predicted Argentina to draw against Algeria, and I think that kind of level and competition difference for Austria to go from Jordan to the champions in Argentina is just going to be too much for them. I think, as we saw in the last World Cup, Argentina kind of takes a bit and really didn't peak in their second game, but really started to find their rhythm in their second game, and I think that's going to happen again.
All right, there you go. Hector, do you have any differing thoughts on this one?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think Argentina, well, once again, it's essentially the same roster, as last World Cup. Continuity is a thing. They do have a solid back line. They have a dog at goalkeeper and a team that may be a little bit different this time around, right? Because, obviously last World Cup they were playing for Messi. This go around, I think it's a little different tone, but they have to prove that they're going to be a nation to really be taken seriously once Messi has hang it up. So I think that this is going to be a big one. We're going to see who's going to be the next guy for Argentina, which is going to say a lot because, I mean, the gap between Maradona and Lionel Messi, that was quite the gap. Even though we did have some great legends, obviously like Riquelme and many others, but there was only one Messi and there was only one Diego Maradona.
Amen. I do think that is going to be a very interesting game nonetheless. Obviously, we all picked Argentina in this one. I guess that surprises nobody that we're picking Argentina. But yeah, it'll be a fun one nonetheless. We will get a lot of great games over the next week. It won't be. I don't feel like the second games are ever as exciting as the first and the third games of a group stage. But I think nonetheless, there's a lot of games that'll be happening between now, when you're listening to this or watching us, and next Tuesday when we're back on the air with a brand new episode. There's going to be a lot that has changed from this conversation to then, and we will be here to break it all down. But before we leave, guys, as always, where are people going to find you? Hector, let's start back with you.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Insert Name FC, of course, on all social media platforms. We are currently on break for the summer. There will be a recap episode of the World Cup, just because that's what we do. But yeah, you can still find us find us more so on Belly Up Sports, man. This is an awesome series. You're going to catch all the content that we get from here. Not just World Cup discussions, but I mean, everyone's going to be reacting to the NBA Finals, Stanley Cup Finals. Let's keep growing this network and keep sharing what's going on. Great, because this isn't the only super show that's coming from Belly Up Sports. So keep giving us some love, like, share, and subscribe, and check out what's coming on here at Belly Up Sports, because we're trying to do things a little bit differently than everybody else.
Hey, there you go. Nick, where's everybody going to find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Nik Gable 37, and then I write for Belly Up Sports. This weekend, we coming out with my favorite things so far from the World Cup article, so that be ready to see that on, and then also following Belly Up Sports for all the stuff we do, all the things we have, content for you, covering the sports.
Nice. Yeah, you can find my ugly mug over at _Lore_sports on X. You'll be more so happy to see my co-host DJ. The much better looking. He's the high of the high-low conversation for sure. And then beyond that, high-low sports at every other platform. But as Hector mentioned, Belly Up Sports, man. We're trying to do everything great here. Doing it different. We're the voice of the fans. That's what we do. This is who we are at our core. And along the way, we're going to give you daily content. So be sure to stay tuned for daily updates for the World Cup. And beyond that, year-round coverage for every other major sport in America and beyond, as Hector is our soccer guy. We do have guys that cover hockey. We do have guys that cover tennis. We have everything under the sun. We even have a golf show and an iRacing show. So lots of things to cover there. So be sure to check it out at Belly Up Sports. Also, you are a betting degenerate like some of us. Be sure to check out the Belly Up Fantasy and Gaming page. You can also check out the Fantasy Sports over on X. A lot of great things happening over there. I did a terrible job again in the Japan game of my predictions, or in the Egypt game of my predictions. The Japan game wasn't so bad. But yeah, the Egypt game did not work in my favor. But you can check out some of those clips as far as games I'm looking at and some of the bets that I personally will be making along the way. So you can make fun of me along the way. That's basically the only reason I'm pointing this out. But guys, as always, we love and appreciate having you here. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you again next week.